This is Rianne's Unpopular Opinions on Healing, where I go onto Reddit, find stories, and expose the emotional patterns that most people avoid. Now, if you've ever felt pressured into making a decision, this one may feel familiar. This is not gossip, this is an emotional anatomy. Let's go. Am I the a-hole for going on holiday to the same destination that my sister went to for her honeymoon? So OP tells us that since she was a child, she has dreamt of going to the Maldives and felt that this year was her year. She wanted to do more traveling, so she saved up money and put a non-refundable deposit on this holiday. She says that before she put the deposit down, no one did anything at all. But the moment she did that, her sister got really upset with her and had basically told her that she doesn't want her to go to that place because that's where she went, and that if she did not cancel her trip, she would cut her off. OP tells us that her parents also support her sister, saying that, it's really hurtful for her to be making that choice to go to the Maldives and that she can go to any other country. OP is asking if she is the a-hole in this situation. Now let's slow it down. In OP's perspective, this situation is about, her wanting to go on this dream holiday and her sister finding a huge problem with it only after she paid a non-refundable deposit. Often we see this because we are actually looking at emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is a form of psychological abuse. Looking closer at this, there is a transactional dynamic going on here. On one side, we have got the controller, the person who's trying to manipulate, and then we have the person that they are trying to force into doing something that they are either uncomfortable with or is unsafe for them. Transactional dynamics rely on three things. One, a fear of abandonment. Two, sense of obligation. Three, the use of guilt to control the other person's actions. Now, if we look in OP's story, we can see all three of those things, right? One, the fear of abandonment. I'm going to cut you off if you don't do what I say. Two, the sense of obligation. Look, even her parents are saying, hey, why did you have to do that? You can go to another place, any other country. And three, the sense of guilt. Her sister going, that's my honeymoon space. That's where, that was a special place for her. Now, what is really important is that when we think of abuse, we think of the big grand gestures, when people are being physically hurt, the loud sounds, the shouting, the arguments, which it is, but it's also the smaller things that a lot of us encounter but don't take too much notice of because we don't necessarily understand what it really is. It can also be those smaller offhand comments that push us into those dynamics because we then become vulnerable as we don't fully understand at that time what is going on. Now, let's take a closer look at threat of abandonment and the ways in which that can be portrayed. So we've got things like, basically, I'm leaving, I'm sick of you, I don't need to take this anymore, lucky that I'm even with you, I don't know why I even stay, if you don't stop crying, I'm leaving. And this is often used on children, the whole line that starts with, if you don't stop crying, I will, and put a threat, go and take you to the orphanage, go live with another family member. And also we've got, if you leave, I'll take the kids or the animals and you'll never see them ever again. This is used to force you into a sense of panic or insecurity, and it's coercive behaviour. Now, it's really important that we don't sugarcoat the things that are said to us. It's very easy to brush things off, right? But we need to see what we are being told and listen to them. Really listen to the words and the phrases that are given to us in a variety of different situations. A lot of us simply brush these kind of comments off, even though they hurt us. And what we need to be doing is listening to our body and what our body is telling us when such things are said. It's important to point out that discomfort isn't failure, it's information. Now, if we look at OP's story, we can tell that whole story is a massive ball of stress. I have put it down in the comments for you to have a closer look. I know it was on the screen a moment ago, but it's also down in the comments if you want to have a closer look at it. But it's just pure stress. It's just her worrying about everything that is going on, her conscience, her sense of obligation to her family, that fear of abandonment, the guilt. And it's really important that we are able to listen to ourselves, listen to our body, because if it doesn't feel quite right, it's telling us something. Yeah? And we have to try and decipher what that information really is. Emotional blackmail is an insidious behavior, a reoccurring behavior that is made to distort your sense of self and influence your actions. You are being influenced into doing something that is not in your benefit, something you don't want to do, and that is coercion. Okay, you are being forced by a variety of actions to not make a choice that's the best for yourself, right for you. Other tactics include threat and intimidation. Threats like, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to harm myself if you don't do something. Silent treatment, sulking, shouting. Remember, not all psychological abuse and not all abuse is going to be loud. It's not going to be hitting and shouting and dramatics. Okay, it can be quite low. It can be that not giving you the energy. Because remember, when someone gives you the silent treatment, for example, they're cutting off all affection, emotion, engagement, and energy to force you into coming back into their space and doing what they want you to do. Another thing is shifting blame, making you feel responsible for their actions. Anyone experience that? If you did this, I wouldn't have done that to myself. I wouldn't have hurt myself. I wouldn't have broken this thing. I wouldn't have shouted if you had just done the things that I had wanted you to do. It undermines your self of worth, which then makes you more susceptible to be influenced. It's a cycle, right? We can just see that loop going round and round already. Things like criticism, sarcastic comments, insults, these are all going to knock you down and make you more vulnerable and in a space where you're going to make choices that another person set out for you because it's easier. That is where we see the loop. And in this case, it's the cycle of pressure. So we start off with a request, being asked to do something. And then that is followed by resistance. I don't want to. In this case, I've paid a deposit that is non-refundable. Then we see intense pressure by the blackmailer. I'm going to cut you off. I'm leaving you if you don't do the things that I'm asking you to do. Then we see compliance. Okay, after that, emotional threats of abandonment and abuse. Comply. Okay, all right, I'll do it. It's easier if I do it. Just okay. And it goes to a temporary calm, but it's a loop. So we know that once one request has been made and accepted, the cycle's going to go back up to the top and there's going to be another request. Then maybe you're going to see the second part of, I don't want to, I'm going to, and then there's a threat, and then there's so on, so forth. It is important that you do not downplay what is going on in your life right now. Okay, it's important that you are not downplaying those behaviors because they are tactics. Okay, it's well thought out and it's done to make you second guess yourself, because when things are psychological, it is hard to decipher, like, am I being too sensitive? Am I being too much by requesting this or standing up to that? And that's how it's made to be. That's the whole point. You're second guessing yourself, which is why we sometimes end up complying, because it makes life easier. It makes sense why some people would respond in this way. The panic, the stress, the compliance. Not many of us will actually see it for what it is when we are in the situation, right? When it's happening, it's hard to see what that person's intent actually is. Because remember, manipulation is gradual. Yeah, that's manipulation. All of a sudden you're vulnerable to it and you're susceptible to this influence, to these cycles and loops, because you've slowly been conditioned to accept it. And before you know it, you're used to the threats, to the ultimatums, withdrawal of affection until you do the things that the other person has asked you or demands from you. That's the emotional roller coaster that we do not want to be on. Okay, and that is why a lot of us comply to these things, because it's just easier just to step off. It's easier to be like, fine, okay. And I mean, it's not like we're going to always be saying, okay, fine, yeah, I know. But that is when you look back at it and you can see that compliance to ultimatums and requests that are not within your benefit, that are not safe, that are not comfortable. That's basically what we're doing. Yeah. However the conversation might entail. If we look at OP's story, she's not going, okay, but she's going like, she's questioning herself. There's a lot of vulnerability in there. And it's such a simple little request, because that whole story is all about her feelings, and there's just one line about, you know, what her sister says, and that hits so hard, because you can actually see the severity of the issue. One line: if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna cut you off. And a lot of the surface conflict, it flashes like this. Yeah, a lot of the things that we've got going, and we've just got to focus on what we've been told and the words that are being said to us. Now remember, protection isn't healing, okay? That's not going to push you down that path of growth and understanding. So it's really important that we take responsibility and accountability for our place within such situations. Now, I'm not victim blaming. I'm not saying that it is your fault for the way a person responds to you. However, we need to say, right, in the past, I have, you know, complied, I have given in, and it's for us to be able to look back at that and go, the next time that happens, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Okay, because that loop, that circle, is only going to keep going around unless you cut it. All right, and that cut is the change, and is the reflection, and, you know, the foresight to see when it's coming. Because as I said, it's not always the big things, it's the small ones. So a point for some reflection. Get your journals out, and I have two things that I would like you to explore. So the first one is about identifying the fog, the fear, obligation, and guilt, what we were talking about at the beginning of the video. Now, I have put some questions down in the description box that I would like you to go down and have a look at. And I want you to reflect on either a situation you're going on right now, that's going on now for you, or something that happened in the past. 2. Now, this is about your role in such situations. There are 3 questions that I would like you to sit with in the name of self-reflection. 1. Are you enabling this behaviour because you are giving in to avoid conflict? 2. Do you trust your intuition when you feel that something is wrong, or do you ignore it? 3. Are you neglecting yourself to satisfy the needs of another person? I want you to sit with those, and you can apply that to any situation that's going on now or something that happened in the past. Healing isn't about perfect behaviour. It's about awareness of what drives it. If this pattern resonated with you, sit with it gently. I've added some meditations down below that you can explore in your own steam. And as always, if you find anything that you feel will benefit another person, or you would like just to share your reflections on those questions and the journaling, please feel very welcome, because one thing that we might find will help another person. So until the next reflection, I hear you, I see you, and I feel you. Bottoms up.